Hello everybody, welcome back to Woodward Avenue M1, the Woodward Dream Cruise. It's finally back. It's good to be back, even if it is murderously hot. Now, I should emphasize right out of the gate, if you are not an American muscle fan, this is not the video for you. I'm showing all of the non-American cars first because as brilliant as the Minis and the Caterhams and all that stuff are, and I really do like seeing them, there's not very many of them. It's not the focus of this show. This show is all about the American cars, specifically of the before 1973. So, with that out of the way, let's focus on what we're seeing right now. And there were quite a bit, relative speaking, non-American cars. We got a lot of British Roadsters. Those are always fun to see in the sun. There were a few other European automakers as well. Alfa Romeo had a very good attendance. Very green attendance, multicolored. They had the red Spider, the red 4C, and lime green Alfa Romeo Giulia. Then we had a few Ferraris, a few Lamborghinis. To be honest, in a field of vehicles that you'll be seeing later on, they're really not that impressive. They're cool, but which is weird you say that about a Lamborghini Murcielago with a V12, but there we go. And also this year, normally there's a lot better attendance, but the Japanese vehicles were sort of lacking, unfortunately. And that's a shame, because they have an incredibly rich culture in here. The JDM world is very strong, even at Woodward, which is, again, American-focused, but not so much that. There were a few Nissans, a few Datsuns, very tastefully modified. They didn't go completely over the top with the craziness. Some of them were actually stock, like this Datsun B210, but as a whole, they were very tastefully modified. And yeah, I quite liked them. The Toyotas were in full attendance, both sports cars, slow cars, and this is a NASA, not the space guys, the race guys, spec MR2, so it's got the full kit out roll cage racing tires, and a very effective paint job. It's very subtle, but I do really quite like it. I don't know why. Speaking of different paint jobs, very blue Porsches. Very blue. Offensively blue. Or red. Admittedly, red looks a lot better. It's more fitting, but yes. Most of the German cars were actually Porsches. There weren't too many others. Certainly noteworthy. There were a lot of, Mercedes and whatnot, but nothing great. And certainly some that I couldn't get a picture of, okay? This is a rolling car show. As much as I would love to take a picture of every BMW 2002 that I saw, which there were quite a few, sometimes there's a Ford Escape in your way, and you can't avoid it, unfortunately. And there were a lot of bugs, too, including this absolutely fantastic looking, military candle Baja bug. It was... Oh, no! Never mind, let's just move on to the Americans. Yeah, let's just move on. As you can expect, considering the next, 9 minutes of this video is still here, this is pretty much all American. Now, it wasn't all American muscles. We had a few cars that are over 100 years old now. This Auburn Spoke Tail from 1935, it's almost 90 years old. And, of course, some of them were modified. This is Woodward, after all. But, on the whole, a lot of the classic American cars were pretty stock, unless they were the rat rods or anything like that like you're seeing now. Except for the real crazy scrapyard looking stuff, which is great, don't get me wrong. The American cars were actually very good at being stock or lightly modified, just paint and rims, pretty much. They're very clean cars, and if you're gonna have a clean car, it might as well be a classic American car from the 1960s and 1970s. I mean, they were everywhere. If you want to have a better collection of Americana from the 60s, in automotive terms anyway, I don't think there's a better place on Earth. It's amazing, the ingenuity of these people, both in terms of keeping them running all these years in stock configuration, or the light modifications here and there, the crazy paint jobs, they all are fantastic, and they all have that sort of guttural sound to it. They're incredible machines. They're amazing. And it's not just, you know, the cliches, the Chevys and the Fords. There are some oddballs here and there. Plymouth was very well represented. There were a lot of Roadrunners. There was actually an original Plymouth Superbird, which is kind of amazing, that you just see it driving on the road. They only made like 1,500 of them. They go for over 150,000 on average, and it's just driving down the road. It's amazing. I love it. It was probably my best car in show in terms of just, wow, because you don't see that very often, but there you go. Then we have the Dodges. Now, the Charger was very plentiful, both the first and second gen. We don't talk about the third gen. They were plentiful. But it wasn't just the Chargers, it wasn't just the Chevys, it was the whole package. There were a lot of convertibles. Convertibles are very rare, and there were a lot of them here. And, again, purple, one of the only manufacturers to pull off purple cars, that being Dodge. And, you know, their world-renowned drag racing persona. Woodward is the cheat day of the year. It's like the purge, sort of, in the auto enthusiast world. Because a whole lot of these cars, all their massive blowers sticking out, and their custom wheels, and the fact that some of them have freaking parachutes on them, it is very clear that they are not street legal. However, for one day a year, one cheat day, one purge day, you can have yourself whatever the hell you want. And that includes some of these race cars. I don't even think the Cobra R is road legal. It might be, it's a little bit hit or miss. But either way, there were all three of them there. This one was very special. I don't know what this is. I think it's off-road spec based on the guard on the front, the raised suspension, and the tires. But if it is truly off-road spec, I've never seen a Fox body like that. So I always love seeing something different, a little bit of the classics of the Torinos. And again, probably not road legal with the drag slicks on the back. This Ranchero, I'm not a big fan of the Ranchero. However, this has a Gulf livery on it. And it's between the Gulf livery and the El Camino. I'm going to take the Gulf livery. This is not an ASC McLaren Mustang. This is an ASC McLaren Mercury. They only made about 115 of them. So there you go. And then, speaking of Mercuries, we had the Cougar, a lot of Cougars, and Cougar Eliminators, a far rarer, far cooler Trans Am racer. I think there were 4 or 5 of them there. There were a lot more than 4 or 5 Broncos. There were hundreds of Broncos, I would imagine. And this one really stuck out to me just because it's cute with the little mini one and the big one. But, let's be honest. Some of these American cars are timeless. Actually, pretty much all of these American cars are fantastic. Some of them for different reasons. The Gremlin is more eccentric and how the hell did this get made in a it's so bad it's good sort of a way. But others are just plain different. The Studebakers, we had a few classic DeLorean, that was in there. I mean, the list is incredible. These are not just Trans Ams, these are Firehawk Trans Ams, excuse me. Just if you wanted to be a little bit crazier. We actually had a few new cars as well. The Hummer EV thing, the concept was here. Not very good looking, I'm not going to be honest. I was a bit optimistic based on the renders, but in person, not so much. And again, just because it's a classic car sure doesn't mean it has to be entirely classic, nor does it have to be entirely road legal. Ford brought their GTLM car, their racing school cars, with a comically big rear wing. Look at the size of that thing. It looks like a time attack wing. I'm a sucker for hilariously over-the-top wings, but that's incredible. This is something. It's their new racing car, a Ford Explorer, so you can learn how to race in a family SUV. That's all I'm gonna say about that. We have a bit more proper race cars. This one was actually signed by Richard Petty, so that's neat. I don't think this is an actual race car, more of a homage, but apparently it's signed by him. This is also technically a homage, but it's made by SuperFormance, so this is the same style car that was used in filming Ford versus Ferrari, and I mean, it's a GT40 Mark II. It's one of the best cars ever made. This was probably the most surprising car in show, though, because it's a CTSV estate, right? Pretty normal, pretty cool, seen a lot of them. But it's a dragster estate car with a parachute, so... yeah. And finishing off the race car list, this Dodge Charger Daytona, it's not really a Daytona, it's a space frame chassis built to look like a Daytona. And I think it's pretty neat. It's not my favorite car in show, but just seeing the amalgamation is always welcome. And of course, this is Woodward. It wouldn't be Woodward like the Daytona we saw earlier. It wouldn't be Woodward without the eccentric and the bizarre. So we got, you know, the Saabs, we had the, I think that was a Cobalt SS, maybe? I'm not sure. Earlier on. Or the Amphibicar in brilliant mint green. I saw a red one last time, but this mint just puts it a little bit over the edge. It's already eccentric and crazy with the fact that it, you know, floats. But the fact they made it mint green is just icing on the cake for bizarreness. And the bizarreness continued. There were these weird three-wheeler things called T-Rexes, which is a great name for a interesting car. And yeah, there's a freaking jet plane fuselage. I didn't get a very good picture of it. Again, see the Mercedes comments from earlier, but, you know, because why not have a teddy bear straddle a road-legal jet cockpit? Now, I was trying really hard to figure out the best in show. I was trying to debate between the various 356s, the Roadrunners. It's a hard life trying to pick the best classic car at this car show. However, as great as these cars were, I just had to give it to, well, the most tragic one. The one that honestly I couldn't stop thinking about. It's not the SuperFormance, it's not the crazy jet car, it's a simple one. It's the Beetle. I'm really sad about the loss of that Beetle. I wouldn't normally give it the best in show, but the fact that it was stolen away so quickly by an idiot in a Mustang, who, yes, we did report the video to the police, so that Mustang driver's not getting away scot-free, but for the 5 seconds that we knew it, I'm gonna have to say it was my favorite in show.